Hello and welcome to this week's Fastest 4 Minutes in Finance. On this week's segment, the lesson of the broken clock. Well, as some of you may know, I spent 17 years as a broadcast journalist for a Little Rock TV station. For much of that time, I had the privilege of working with the late, great Paul Eales. Paul was the voice of the Arkansas Razorbacks for nearly 3 decades until his untimely death in a car accident in 2006. I learned a lot from Paul about broadcasting, but I learned more from him about how to be a better human. Now, Paul was the ultimate optimist. If anyone ever asked him his prediction about an upcoming Razorback football or basketball game, his answer was always the same. He would say he thought the Razorbacks had a good chance to win. Of course, they didn't always. Some seasons he was wrong a lot more than he was right. But Paul would always say about his predictions that even a broken clock is right twice a day. That's true. But when it comes to investing, you certainly shouldn't make decisions based solely on predictions about future outcomes. Take where we are right now in the economy. Predictions for a U.S. recession in the near term have been prevalent for well over a year and a half now, and we still haven't had one. Major investment firms have scaled back their odds of a recession as the economy keeps beating expectations. Economists are split on whether there will be one in the next year. Some are banging the recession drum and some are no longer doing it. And of the economists who still predict recession, when they think it will happen seems to change every time we get economic data. There's even a growing consensus that the economy has bottomed and we are beginning another economic expansion. The economy grew at a rapid rate in the third quarter. Real GDP estimates are as high as 4.7% growth year over year. Inflation-adjusted retail sales outside of the auto sector were up 3.7% in the quarter. Home construction grew at a 7.5% clip in the last quarter. The labor market is still strong. Payrolls are up 2.1% in the past year, and the unemployment rate is still below 4%. Just yesterday, I watched a video from the manager of a large advisor group, and his assessment of the economy is that it's accelerating. At the same time, the yield curve remains inverted. That means that longer-term interest rates are lower than short-term interest rates. And that setup has long been a reliable indicator of a near-term recession. And Q4 numbers could look a lot different than Q3. So who's right? Who is the broken clock? Well, here's the reality. They could all be right, and they could all be wrong. The calls for a recession have been constant for nearly 2 years. If they remain constant for a long period of time, they will eventually be right. A recession is always coming. The question is whether it happens in 7 months or 7 years. The broken clock will be right again. But as an investor, you can't afford to make decisions around when the clock is right. This presents the temptation of trying to time the market. And this is never the right investment strategy. The market doesn't always move the way you think it should in reaction to economic news. Your investment strategy in equities should always be for the long term. When do you need to utilize your investments? If retirement is years away, or even in retirement, if you don't need the income from equities for at least a decade, then you've got a clock that is never broken. You have one that is ticking for a long time to come. Thanks for watching.